The ability to gain people's support, especially when you have no formal authority, is important in a development context. We asked leaders in development to discuss this and to share some successful examples.
One of the biggest challenges that I've encountered in my life was when I was working for WHO in a hosted partnership on the Health Metrics Network. And we were given the job on the Commission of Accountability for Women's and Children's Health in being the global focal point for civil registration and vital statistics. Typically in a country or regionally, health is not seen as a leading sector in civil registration and vital statistics. It's normally the Statistical Bureau, the civil registrars, the Department of Homeland Security. So even trying to create some global leadership from the health sector immediately presented some challenges. So what I did during a period of time was to travel, starting at the regional level, working with key regional stakeholders like the UN Economic Commissions, and persuading them that there was value in bringing all of the key sectors together that could address the issue of improving civil registration and vital statistics, not necessarily leading from the health sector, but enabling people to see the value of different groups coming together to address what is a very substantial development problem. Having then managed to kind of coalesce these regional actors around the problem, we then went and worked with countries, getting countries to start up multi-sectoral committees to talk about how to address the problem of legal identity and civil registration and vital statistics. We ended up managing through this process to engage 3 major regions of the world, so the Asia region, Africa and the Middle East, to garner both regional support around civil registration and vital statistics, to work on a country-by-country basis, bringing together these multi-sectoral committees. And then ultimately, after a period of several years, and I'd in fact left, we held a global summit on civil registration and vital statistics, and we started to attract money, and there's now a global donor trust fund started by the World Bank to actually support countries to strengthen their civil registration vital statistics programs.
Ms. Clark took on the chair of the United Nations Development Group at a time and in a situation that was where the alignment had faded, the commitment was lukewarm, and the direction was general. There were formal meetings, there was a framework of results against which some activities had been tagged. There were, but there was very little. People were not walking the talk. There was very little budget in common, commitment of resources, and the objective was unclear. What was it that all these very important people were committing to doing together? What instructions were they giving to their respective country offices and field presences, so that the meeting happening in New York or Geneva or Nairobi would then be followed by action on the ground by all the country reps and so forth. And what I saw Helen delivering was a sort of management without authority. She never pretended that there was a hierarchy that doesn't exist in legislation. She never tried to have such a legislation approved that would give her a power or an authority that would not emanate from substance and from persuasion and from intellectual debate, but she used substance, persuasion and intellectual debate to generate processes of convergence, of adhesion, of with a lot of emotional intelligence, trying to find what was it that people had in common, and that agencies and structures and bureaucracies had in common and wanted to do together. And I thought that was a very intelligent, very smart way to go about a web and a group of people, as I say, very, very important, all of them, and managing quite significant resources, financial, human, technological, field presence, headquarter presence, diplomatic network, not trying to impose on them, not trying to whip them into any common objective, but rather trying to find, through discussion, what was it that brought them together. And this model of management without authority, of soft power, if you will, of staying power, because it required time and persistence and being obstinate a little bit and stubborn on getting some results done, has resulted in a number of achievements. Standard operating procedures, joint procurement, mutual recognition of processes that prevents you from having to reinvent the wheel if somebody else is doing what you could use for your own business processes. And ultimately, in substance, a very, very strong convergence towards what is today the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. And from the most pedestrian and material type of agreement on how to do business to the most elevated and diplomatic level of normative agreement.
When I was appointed to a role in the medical faculty at the University of Queensland, this is some 20 years ago, but it was to contribute to the writing of a new curriculum for Aboriginal health workers, and it was the first degree of its kind in Australia, so there was no precedent for it. There was very little experience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander education in the medical faculty, and I was appointed to a support role. But the day I started, the person who'd been appointed to lead the program decided not to take the position, so I was told I'd be leading it. And I was coming from an angle of no experience in health and limited experience in Indigenous education. So I had to write a curriculum using problem-based learning that had never been used before at the University of Queensland, and around a whole lot of clinical health science, population health sort of cases. And the only way that I was able to achieve success was to garner support from a very wide range of areas of expertise within the faculty and operate on the goodwill of those people. So in garnering that support, I created I guess a motivation and excitement around something really new for the faculty and something that was really important to public health in Australia. So the success of that program over a 10-year period in graduating more than 100 Indigenous health workers was unprecedented in the country.
Right, so what I would say as a key to success, the number one thing in my mind is to be a professional. When you're working in an international development context, when you have to work with different people and you have to garner their support, you need to be very professional in your work. You need to have your homework done. You cannot expect other people to coordinate or collaborate with you, which is expected in a lot of development context, unless you yourself are a professional. So that's number one. Number two would be that you need to have respect and humility. Regardless of who those people are, they might be coming from very different backgrounds, different cultures, different professional backgrounds, and their aptitude might be different from yours. But if you need their support to get certain work done, especially developmental projects, then you need to be coming down to their level. And that doesn't mean you have to compromise on the nature of the work or the nature of the tasks, but you need to treat them on an equal footing. They should not feel like you are someone who is their boss or someone they depend on for financial resources or funding, because then the dynamic really changes. Their support will be tailored to how you treat them. So the more respectable you are, the better they will be able to give you support. And the last thing I would say is about patience. Developmental work is grinding. It is not an overnight success. It sometimes might take months or years to reach the results that we're aiming for. So you need to be very patient in dealing with those people that you need support from to achieve your successes. What I'll tell you as an example, based on the 3 things that I was sharing, is that when I was working with the floods crisis in Pakistan, entire communities were devastated, and they had faced such a crisis for the first time in their lives. And these people were in the rural areas, farmers and cattle herders, but they knew how to manage their own livelihoods. They knew how to manage their communities. So we had to come in as professionals, as someone who were helping them for a developmental program and also for relief services. But we also had to be respectful for them and be patient in how we deal and get those results that we wanted to achieve.